All right, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's lesson. Literal equations and dimensional analysis, lesson 2.7. Of course, I am Mr. Stiger, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this, and welcome. So this is the last lesson in Chapter 2. My goal for you today, everybody, is to make sure that you can make pretty much an equation out of anything. And what I mean that is, if anybody gives you an equation with variables on one side, variables on the other side, and numbers, and we ask you to solve for multiple different variables, that you can actually do that, okay? So the goal here is to be able to create equations and to rewrite them quite consistently. Bell work. Please get this open and answer all three of them. All right, now I could get really fancy with this, and this is on lesson 2.6, which is about ratios, and I know we did a lot of ratio stuff related to that, but I want to just do this quickly and simply. So this equation setup would be 89 times 15%, okay? If you did that, 82, 9 times 25, okay, you would end up with a price, this is the difference, okay? So what you do then is you actually take this equation, all right, and you would subtract it into here. So 89 minus 13.35. So I'm going to go minus 99. And the answer is going to come out to be, the discounted price is $75.65. Okay? Sometimes we need to use the ratio math, sometimes we don't. Okay, what is the final price of hiking boots with a price of $78? The discount is going to be 10%. So I know right away, actually, that this discount is going to be $7.80, just because I know math and the decimal. Okay, so it would be 78 minus 780. Okay, so if you do that, calculator 78 minus 7.8, I'm going to come up with 70.2. Now I have a tax on top of it of 6%. So you'd multiply this number by 0.06. Okay? And when you do that, times 0.06, I come up with 4.21. Now it comes up with a 2, but it shouldn't affect it too much. So I subtract that from 70.2, and I end up with price of $65 and 90. It says 98.8. So a store will actually round that up to 99. Okay, just as an FYI. If it's rounded to 3 decimal places, bam. Hopefully you guys can see that. Then you would have to actually round it up on money when it comes to somebody selling you something. Olivia's cell phone bill last month was $125. Her bill this month is $85. What is the percent change? Okay, so the percent change would be times a particular number. Okay, actually, other way. So it would be, I'll just do this over here. So X times a certain number would equal 85. Actually, it would be not 85, it'd be the difference between that. Okay, so what is the difference between 125 and 85? That would be, so let's work backwards here. All right, I'm showing you guys probably how to do this completely different than what I did in class. So hopefully this is a good understanding. Oops, that's a 0, and then that's 12, so that'd be 40. Okay, so your difference is $40. So X times this is going to equal, actually, not 85, but it's going to equal 40. Okay, so if I take a certain percentage, I multiply that by 125, I'm going to get the answer of 40. So if this is multiplication, divide both sides by 125, okay? Hopefully you guys get this. And so I would have 40 divided by 125, and make sure I do it correctly, and it would be 0.32 is the answer, or 32%, okay? All right, so today we're going to start constructing a lot of arguments, okay? We still have 3 standards we're going to be covering, and so there's going to be a lot of mathematical practices that we're doing as well. You solved equations with variables on each side. That's what we did the previous lesson. Now we're going to solve equations for given variables, use formulas to solve real-life world problems. You will see formulas all over the place in chemistry. When you guys start diving deeper into some other sciences, you'll see them, and as well as in math. A little equation. So in your notes, we're not actually going to start on the vocabulary on this equation, I believe, until the second page. That's when we'll get into the new equation, or the new vocabulary. So first, we'll just go from here. First equation, you have two variables on the same side. We're solving for b, okay? So what you want to do when you're solving for b is to make sure you annotate everything correctly, okay? Which means we're going to do the split. And let's work on both sides together. By now, you guys know how to do this. If we're solving for b, what do we got to do first? Let's get rid of the 12c, okay? So we're going to subtract 12c from both sides. And when you do that, you go back to blue, you end up with 5b, because these cancel out, equals 9 minus 12c, okay? So you can't combine those terms. And then, last thing you do to solve for b, remember this is multiplication, you would do what? You would do division. So you divide this by 5, divide that by 5. When you do that, you end up with your final answer, b, because these cancel out, equals 9 minus 12c all over 5. Can you do anything beyond that? Not really, ladies and gentlemen. Just leave it sitting like it is right here, because you can't simplify any farther. So to solve for b, that is what you do, okay? We last year we talked when I taught my Algebra 1 class, we did a lot with the formulas for interest and principal, rate, and time. We might do that again this year, but know that this is kind of the same setup when you have a formula, okay? Now it's your turn. There are quite a few on your notes, and I know I left a big space for you. What I want to make sure you guys can do is at least, these are the simpler ones here, but at least try to solve as many as you can within the given space, okay? The harder they are, the easier it is for you to understand the concepts. So please make sure you try your best to solve all 4, and then I'll give you the answers when we come back. All right, so on these guided practice questions, all right, they're in your book. Please make sure, I forgot to mention at the beginning, that you guys are on page 122, okay? And then on the side, you do put GP 122, okay? So that way, like I've told you multiple times by now, you can tie your notes back to the book. So with these equations, one thing you want to make sure you do is just solve simply for what's a given. So here we're looking for n. So if we're looking for n, sorry, my board keeps weirding out on me. If you're looking for n on this equation, then you're going to solve and get rid of the 6p first, right? So let's get rid of the 6p. So this is going to be subtract 6p from both sides, okay? And when you do that, you're going to end up with, let's go 15 minus 6p equals 3n, okay? Hopefully everybody sees that and understands. And so in order to get rid of the n, we're going to subtract both sides, or not subtract, but divide both sides by 3. And when you do that, the ultimate question then for you, ladies and gentlemen, is can you simplify any of this? And the answer is yes, you can, okay? So please make sure you do the one last step. What I mean by that is these cancel out, so you get n equals. Now remember, on this equation, it can actually be split, all right, that this, okay, this right here and this are the same thing. What you're doing is you're splitting up the subtraction sign. So can you simplify this? Yes, you can. So the end result would be 15 divided by 3, which is 5, minus 6p over 3, which is 2p. So your answer is n equals. Now I'm going to switch it around just because that's how I like to look at it. It doesn't matter how you write it, but there it is, okay? All right, always make sure sometimes that you can finish it off, and you go from there. So the next one over here, solve for k. First step is what? Let us get rid of this fraction. Multiply both sides by 5 over 1 and by 5 over 1, okay? So when you do that, you'd end up with k minus 2, because the 5's cancel out, equals 5 times this, 55j. Then you just move 2 to both sides, add 2, k equals 55j plus 2. Simple enough, right? So go ahead and write those down, because I will be stopping this video. I will be not stopping the video, but erasing it right now. I don't have enough room, so I have to erase all this, and then we can do 1D and 1B. If you guys are starting to struggle with this stuff in class, okay, please make sure you come see me. I can give you a couple more exercises, and the big key is that you guys need to be able to do these exercises by now, because it's only going to get more difficult as we move forward, okay? So, next step here, we're going to solve for t. If you're going to solve for t, one thing you got to make sure you remember is this is what? T times r plus 4. How would you actually get rid of it? Well, you can actually divide both sides by r plus 4. And if you do that, okay, t equals 28 over r plus 4. Now, I know on the equation above, we simplified it. Could you do that here? No, you cannot, okay? Remember, on the other equation, you could simplify it because of what was in the denominator, but you can't split this one up because of what's in the denominator here, so you leave it just like that. This equation, ladies and gentlemen, first thing you would do, okay, when you're solving this is going to be actually the exact opposite of what we've done in the past, which is you want to get rid of this a. And how would you get rid of this a? You would actually multiply or divide both sides by a. So when you do that, the a's are going to cancel out, and you're going to q minus 8 equals 23 over a. I bet you most of you looking at this think to yourself, how do you do that? Well, remember, it's order of operations, okay? You can do, if you do one thing to one side, you can do it to the exact same thing to the other side. You have to. So if I divide by a, these a's cancel out because a over a is 1, okay? Remember, if a over a would be like if a equaled 6. Then this would be 6 over 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. It's a fraction. So in this case, you move it over. Then you have the 8. Add 8 to both sides. And you'd end up with your final answer of being q equals 23 over a plus 8. Oops, I wrote that in the wrong spot. Sorry about that. Fix that. Sometimes you go a little too fast. All right. If you guys have any questions about these, please come ask me in class. All right, let's keep going. All right, now we have a formula for solve this bad boy for x. How about that? Now, what you want to do is, in this instance, is you need to get everything involved with the letter x to one side, okay? So when you do that, we want to let's move this xy over here because it's negative. And since it's negative, what you're going to do is actually add xy to both sides, right? Okay? If you do that, what's going to happen to this part here? Negative and a positive is going to what? Cancel out, right? So now let's rewrite this side. Now it's going to be a little crazy. Okay, and then over here you just have the number 4. Now, we still want to get everything that does not have an x with it to the other side. So now we have to add the 2x to both sides. Okay? Hopefully everybody's still with me on this and not like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Did I say 2x? I meant 2z, sorry. Sometimes, like I said, going a little quick. But you guys see what I'm doing, right? And so now you have 7x plus xy, and drop this down, and you're left with what? 4 plus 2z. Hopefully everybody sees how we went from here to here, just by doing addition and subtraction, okay? We are adding to both sides, and then we add again to both sides, and you end up with everything on one side and everything on here. Now, here's the key, and some of you might get lost at this section, but let me ask you, in relation to this particular problem, what is the same in both? X, okay? In here, both of these both have an x. So now what you can do is you can actually do reverse distribution. What I mean by that is I can put an x on the outside here, okay? Sorry, board keeps wigging out on me. I can put an x out here, okay? If I put an x out here and a bracket, guess what I'm about to do? Take the x away from here, so it's 7, take it away from there, plus y. So, think about it backwards. If I asked you to distribute this x into the 7, what would it be? Be 7, or x times 7, so you'd write out 7x plus x times y, xy. See the same thing right there? Okay, so this is what we're doing with that, all right? That is how you do that. You could pull an x out, all right, put it around on a bracket. Now we need to make sure we finish off this side, all right? This is still 4 plus 2z. We're not doing anything crazy. Now here's the question. Can we now get rid of this? And what I mean by get rid of it, can we move it over to here? The answer is what? Yes, you can, because this is multiplication. So you would actually divide both sides by 7 plus y. Okay, and if you did that, what does 7 plus y over 7 plus y equal? 1. That's like, remember, for y, if I put, instead of y, I put the number 2, it'd be 7 plus 2, which would be 9, over 7 plus 2, which would be 9. 9 divided by 9 is what? 1. Okay? And so if you cancel those out, what's left here? X. X is the only thing you have left, right? Because you would cancel out this, and you only have one x left, right? And then on this side, ladies and gentlemen, take a wild guess what you do. You do really nothing, okay? This is your final answer down here, so it equals 4 plus 2z all over 7 plus y. Now, the reason we do this is so that you guys can understand how to manipulate fractions and solve for more than one variable within a fraction, okay? If I ask you to solve for z, I would want you to be able to rewrite this whole thing to solve for z. If I ask you to solve for y, I would ask you to please rewrite everything to solve for y. I just so happen to ask you to solve for x, you can write it for x, okay? I believe I gave you guys plenty of room to solve for that one. You may have to make multiples, so what I mean by that is write on the left and switch over and write on the right, okay? We'll go from there. Guided practice, your turn, ladies and gentlemen. There's 2 big blocks, okay? Take your time and try to get this done by yourself. All right, once again, a very math-intensive, basically a very math-intensive lesson, just like the last one. 3D, let's move it, okay? If we do that, now we have d minus 3d plus 5c equals, oh, don't do equals because we got the break, right? So let me just move this. So if I got d minus 3d, that's actually going to be negative 2d, all right, plus 5c equals negative 1. All right, let's add or subtract 5c from both sides. Take it out, you have negative 2d, and then you have negative 1 minus 5c. And then last piece, ladies and gentlemen, you would do would be what? Divide this bad boy by negative 2. You want to get rid of the negative. Divide this bad boy by negative 2. And then what do you end up getting? Now, make sure you guys understand one thing. Negative divided by negative is what? Positive. Negative divided by negative is what? A positive. So, your actual answer on this one is d equals 1 plus 5c all over 2. Now, do you want to break it up and do anything crazy with that? Not necessarily. You just leave it like that and go from there. What I mean by that is it could be 1/2 plus 5 over c. There's no 5c over 2. There's no real reason to do that, so you just leave it as is. Okay, this one here, same setup as we did with some of the earlier examples, okay? Let's subtract qr from both sides. All right, when we do that, we end up with, this is going to be 6q minus qr minus 18. And the only thing left over here is the letter t. Keep the q's on this side, so let's get rid of the 18. So when we get rid of the 18, we're going to add 18 to both sides. All right, we do that. You end up with 6q minus qr. This would be t plus 18, right? So we'll keep going. Same setup. If you guys look and see what's going to happen, that last example I showed you, it's going to happen to this one as well. All right, so now where are we at? We're at a point where you can pull out what letter? The letter Q from both of these variables. So if I pull out the letter Q, I'm left with 6 minus R. Okay, remember, you're doing reverse distribution. If Q times 6 is 6Q, Q times R is QR. And then it's going to be over T plus 18. Remember, this is multiplication, so let's divide it. Divide by 6 minus R. Divide it by 6 minus R. So you end up, ladies and gentlemen, with your final answer of Q equals T plus 18 over 6 minus R. Sorry, that's a bad R. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully it does, okay? Make sure you understand the manipulation part and moving things back and forth, and please don't get intimidated by this, okay? If you do, just slow down, breathe, rewind the video, and see if you can actually solve it out, okay? Car's economy in miles per gallon is given in the formula E equals M over G, where M is the number of miles driven, and G is the number of gallons of fuel. Solve for the formula M, okay? Want to see what we did. So here's where it's formula based. So we're going to take this formula and we're going to solve for M. So if we're going to solve for M and it's E equals M over G and you're solving for M, what do you think you're going to do? Well, this mg is in a fraction, so you need to actually multiply both sides by the letter G. And if you do that, these G's cancel out, so you have M equals EG. Now, we use your formula. How about these names in this book, huh? If this person's car has an average fuel consumption of 30 miles per gallon, and she used 9.5 gallons, how far did she drive? Okay, so we know that what? The average fuel consumption is 30 miles per gallon. The 30 would be the E, okay? And the G is the number of gallons of fuel being used. It's 9.5. So we know from that formula it's going to be M equals 30 times 9.5. So how much did she use? Let's grab our calculators. Turn this bad boy on. 30 times 9.5 comes out to be 285. Do you leave it like that? No. How far did she drive? 284 miles. Please make sure you guys label these, okay? Your turn. Try this one out. All right, let's solve for R. Solving for R, you're going to do the same thing, right? Now, on this one, what we have is the equation at the bottom, all right? So when you do that, what you want to do is you can actually, at this point, you have to get the R out of the denominator. So how do you get it out? Multiply both sides by R, right? That's a weird R. So if you do that, all right, you would end up with RI equals V. Hopefully everybody sees that and understands that, okay? And now, since we gotta still get R by itself, now you gotta divide both sides by R, not by R, sorry. Divide both sides by I. So you'd end up with R equals V over I. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be on the AZ Merit most likely and our CBAS test. And so please make sure you understand how to take a formula and rewrite it to the variable that you need it to. Okay, now there's our formula. Now it's asking find the resistance of a current with 22 volts and 0.5 amps. So resistance equals 22 over 0.5. Let's put it in the calculator and let's see what we get. 22 divided by 0.5 is resistance equals 44. Now, is there any type of volts we need to have here? Resistance in 44. It's actually, this is ohms. OHMS is ohm.